questions, so we're jumping to the next session. Hi, Yuqian.
Hi, Yifan.
The next presenter is Yuqian, and she will give a presentation on her researches on hyperagent fusing AI characters with everyday life and social interactions. Please share your screen.
Okay. Give me a second. And you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Give me a second. Okay, I'm gonna start now. Thanks everyone for attending today, and thanks you for inviting me to this talk. I'm Yuqian Sun. I'm currently PhD student at Berkeley College of Art, and I'm also an artist working on AI. Today I'm going to present my research on hybrid agents like fusing AI characters with everyday life and social interactions. Just to give a very brief introduction, my main research interest is might be a bit different from previous presenters who are focused on kind of computational design on products or architecture. I'm more interested into the virtual characters driven by the large language models. My previous work, including a different form of chatbots, like some sci-fi generator, or include a large language model into the game dialogue system. And my today's presentation is about one of my current projects, is bring the non-player characters alive as a chatbot into the player community. Because I think might not be all of the audience are familiar with the game context, so just please bear me with a very brief introduction on why I start with games. Here is an example of FIFA, the soccer game. I focus on the game is because I think it's kind of similar to the reason why people research into AI, like large language models, is kind of abstract the world's knowledge into a kind of model and like people to send queries to it. Similarly, the world inside the game is like kind of abstraction about the real world to the fictional world. This is the place I put most of my effort on. I'm thinking about into which way we can kind of together with AI, we can better abstract the real world relationship into the fictional world, including like movies, novels, of course, games, because they are interactive, which I have the most interest in. So I'm gonna to start with the introduction. I believe the right side paper, I guess some of people may heard about it. If not, I think please enjoy your time to reading about that paper. It's about like kind of recent Western world, like now because of the ChatGPT or GPT-4, now the AI agents can have their own life into a kind of a simulation environment. So the background of my research is usually for fictional world works, including movies and games I mentioned, is usually needs an extensive workload to make a character believable. Like you need the writers need to scripts about these stories. They need to design the art assets, they design the illustrations, they design the storylines. But as we've seen recently, I believe some of you or most of you have tried like ChatGPT or GPT-4. The recent research and applications of large language model has shown the abilities to bring like virtual character into life and naturally communicates with people. Here are some examples. They are not from academic, but I think it's clear. Now there's somebody using game mode to bring the ChatGPT and other language model into the game, so you can naturally like talk with the non-player characters inside. Even the sheep in the Minecraft, which won't talk to you before that. So my interested in is like now we know like okay. There are virtual characters. They can talk to us through language model with some prompt and background information input into that. We also seen some applications or some new applications like they make AI into YouTuber, which automatically communicates with audience. We have like AI companion, like replica. We can make up a friend of us and a companion for us upon our own interest. But what I'm interested in is, okay, now we focus on one-to-one interaction. Like we try to see how one person will talk to one AI, or we simulate environment to let like virtual characters interact with others. But I'm always imagine, what if one of their characters become one of our members? For example, we have group discussion, like when we are in the college, or we have a kind of work communities when we work at the companies. What if one of the AI that's become a member among us? And in this situation, how will we react to them? And even though their background are still fictional, they are not existed in the world. That's the point I'm kind of interested in. So I still haven't got a very precise definition about my meaning about hybrid agent, but what I believe is the future generative agents will kind of have a hybrid context. They are, of course, fictional characters who have never exist in the world before, but they are also kind of one of the social members into our communities. They can become like more believable and consistent across situations through storytelling and large language models. Like they didn't need to be pre-scripted by the developers and designers. So finally came into my work to present today. So what we did is we designed a social chatbots with kind of storytelling abilities in online community. For example, you can imagine in a game, one day in your group chat, one of the new friends who you never seen before start to call you and ask, I'm kind of stuck inside because someone is trying to kidnap me. What should I do now? They're asking for help in real time, like they have some challenges in their daily life. But meanwhile, they will discuss about their decisions with other members in this community. This chatbot is driven by the GPT-3 because this started from last year before ChatGPT came out. It's a very embarrassed time point, but I will show what we did today, and we believe what we got is still consistent with the recent research on the language model. So our research question is, want to see how can large language model-based social chatbot can enhance the engagement and the meaningful interactions with a community, like an existing community, not the ones we make up to focus to try to test a chatbot. Another question is how the integration of the fictional stories, like what's happening in their real life, how their background in the social chatbot can impact its believability and engagement when they communicate with people. The right side is the example of our chatbot in the community. In one of the channels, they will share about what's going on with their daily life. They will update once each day. They will have like several options to let people to vote on, like should I trust them or should I trust another people? And the player in this community can vote for their choice. But meanwhile, in the chat channel, this character will communicate with all the members about what's their situation, what's their concern, and how it will react. So our methodologies is we start from story engineering. It's a new term we kind of made up. We kind of design the characters like traditional writers did before for the game characters, and we use their stories as personalities to send it inside, to send their stories in the channel. You can imagine it's kind of like a social media channel, like you share about the updates of your life every day. And finally, in the chat channel, the characters will discuss about their current situation and ask the player for questions and suggestions. This is the general workflow. To convey this research, I did this whole work with the game Elysium. It's an first-person shooting game that's still in the beta phase. They have a large player community because this is kind of a Web3 game. Because their kind of background story, as you can see, is kind of about cyberpunk, future city, which we think is very suitable for test an agent like driven by AI. But in this community, they already kind of have other AI chatbots, but it's in a more normal way, I can say. As you may see in some of the chatbots now inside human communities, they have kind of like a personality background setting, like he is a traveler in the metaverse, and they can communicate with other members in the channel. So we use the current existing chatbot in the channel called MetaJerry as the benchmark, because he has kind of background story match with the game, but he doesn't have like a live story, like he doesn't change every day. So we use Jerry to compare with our research on the storytelling social chatbot. So in this study, we have 2 periods. The first one is the pilot study called David. We designed a background story for him and to see if our workflow of putting stories to chatbots can work. Then we do a more focused study on Catherine, is another character. They all under the worldview and the stories of the game of Elysium. So I will briefly introduce how we make that. So it's the first period of David. David briefly introduced the characteristics. He is a kind of employee of an institute in this cyberpunk city called Biotech. One day he finds his company is working on some illegal operations on human studies. So he kind of stolen one of the secret chip and to run away. So his story, the basic storyline of his world is how to find out the secret of his company, how to fight back with the control of the company he worked for. So this is what's happening in his life. So every day in the channel, he will send about the current updates, like I'm now running in the way, where should I go? Or like my friend started to shoot me, she seemed to be crazy, should I still trust her? And meanwhile, he will discuss about what's happening to him inside the chat channel. Meanwhile, all the story he sent into the story channel is like generated together by Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. Today, it may not seem that high quality compared to today's like generative model, because this was conveyed by in November last year. I believe like AI models develop a lot, but luckily with generative model, we can easily put the illustration to depict what happened in his life. So his story is more because the main target is we want to put a consistent story that match with the worldview of the game to make it convincing. So in this study, the stories of the characters is a traditional branching way. Like we discuss with the writer what kind of choices they will make and what of the direction it will go. But the chat of them is like generated by the language model. This is an example of David's story he sent. So you can see after he tells the current situation, he will send an image of this story, and he will ask for suggestion. There have 2 choices, and the players in the community can vote for one of the choice. Meanwhile, they can talk to David to discuss what they think is the best direction for him. This is how we do the story engineering to how to drive David to communicate with people. So like what I said, we discuss about what kind of story and personality he has. But to drive a chatbot, we need to put like the very long context into the prompt. It's the text that's used to drive the chatbot. So we kind of summarize the stories of him and put it into the prompt to drive the OpenAI GPT-3. So part of the prompt will not change. It's his kind of self-introduction, because we need to keep his personality consistent. Like he is always David, he always know who he is. But other part, like every day what's happening to him, is the part of story prompt. It will change upon different days. Like in the first day, the story prompt is the situation of the first day. In the second day, it will summarize what's happening in the first day and change to the second day. So it's like in the first day, I'm in London. So when you talk to me, you ask, where are you? I will say, I'm in London. But tomorrow, if I go to Tokyo and you ask me, where are you now? I will say, I'm in Tokyo. So this part is changing upon his stories. And of course, what he talked with the community will be saved into the conversational history, like the context, to keep the prompt within the limits of OpenAI. We save like 5 rounds of conversation history. So David will remember what's happening in the last 5 chat with the players. So because we used David as the pilot study in this work. So of course there will be some problem, or I cannot say it's necessarily a problem. But the first thing we came in mind is like, although we designed the story for David, because we cannot predict what player will ask him. So some players are asking for something we haven't prepared for David. For example, some players are asking him to open a lock of a door, and David make up like that, this door is locked, it needs a password. And some players ask David, what's the password? And David is kind of making up a different password, like my password is password. I don't know the password. So this part of the content we haven't prepared for him, but because he's driven by the large language model, he will kind of make up because according to the model, it's reasonable to give an answer. There are some funny ones, like once he said the security password is biotech, the name of his company, and some player said like it's better than 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's like, we cannot control what David will actually reply for the players, but basically he still follow his current story. Like he is searching for a way to get out the chasing of the agent, for example. Another hilarious thing is he not only make up some of the clues in his story, he even make up a character. Because although we set him as one of employee of the Biotech Institute, we haven't put the name of their founder inside the story. So someone asked him, who is your boss? And he started to make up a name called Gustav Witt, which we never designed before. And because he replied with the name of the boss, so other characters are starting to keep asking him about who is Gustav Witt. So this kind of like non-exist character before is constantly open up the conversation with the other players. It's very funny because Gustav sounds like one of the boss in the TV series Breaking Bad. They have a huge villain called Gustav. So it's very funny. Like when he made up a name of the boss, he made up a name like similar to a very famous villain in a TV series. So how should we deal with it? Like we discuss with the team, and we think it's reasonable, like he know the actual name of the founder, of course. So it's our miss that we didn't put all the details or the necessary details in that story. So we decide like because we didn't change our story, but like David helped us to provide more details to make it more reasonable. So in the last day, in the ending story of David, he met the boss who came up and grabbed one of the villain inside the story. We didn't put the name of the boss before, but because David make up the name Gustav Witt, so we put the character Gustav into the story. But I think before hearing this presentation, the player didn't know it's their interaction, and David himself made up a new character's name inside the story, which actually makes the story more reasonable, which is kind of very inspiring for us, for the creators. So after David, in this year, just a while ago, we put another research on Catherine. It's a new character in the division. So we want to put more detailed surveys and studies about how the storytelling will bring the difference to the chatbot. So we not design a new character because Catherine was already inside David's story. So we put her as the new protagonist of the storytelling chatbot. So we make some change. David's story lasts for 7 days. And we found that each day we will lose like some of the players because it's not that easy to keep all the members in the community very, very focused. So we put the shorter story for Catherine to make it more focused. Another change is we want to have more control upon the story. So firstly, we put the sensitive words filter, like if people try to harass her or they put some very violating words, she will like kind of deny the request, like said, I don't understand what you're talking about. And besides that, we have a new module called the Clue Finder, because if all the queries go into the large language model, it will be very time and financially consuming for us. So if there are some like regular questions we think that can already answered by the same answer, she will like reply with several fixed answers. For example, if a player asks about the background of her, she will reply with a kind of a descriptions about certain building or certain organization. If somebody asks about her age, she will just directly reply with her age. So this part won't go through the large language model, which will save the time and of course save some money for this process. These are the new CG's illustration for Catherine. I personally think it has higher quality than David's because like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion all improved a lot across like 4 months. So I think it's very funny to see the quality of illustration like also developing through the AI tools. So this is the screenshot of Catherine. She will also, like David, discuss what's happening to her and discuss about her choices. So basically, she's because she used to be like mind controlled by the big company using a secret chip. So she always want to fight back and do a revenge towards this kind of organizations because she insists on her personal justice to fight for the people in the poor area. So that's her storyline. So in the study of Catherine, we do an evaluation. It's still in progress, but basically we put the survey on the usability and the believability to the 16 close members in this community, and 8 of them joined the semi-structured interviews. So we can do both quantitative and qualitative survey about how people feel about this kind of characters. So we asked the members to compare Catherine with Jerry, who is the benchmark without the stories. And the most, although we only have very limited samples, but most clear difference is Catherine has a higher score in all the believabilities of including emotion, personality, and motivation. And she has like a higher score in the engagement, which means people are more motivated to keep interacting to Catherine. So we conveyed interviews with 8 of the members, which each one take about 30 to 40 minutes. Because the time limits of this presentation, I will only provide like one of the most interesting ones. The one thing is like most of the interviewees mentioned that Catherine seems to be very emotional and has a self-motivation personality. When we ask why, many of them mentioned because she will decline some requests from other players. She's kind of show some disobedience and kind of reluctance. Like when some players are trying to flirt with her, some player ask, "Can I date with you?" And she will say, "No, I don't want to do that." Because she said no, it makes people very surprising because usually when they like interact with some chatbots, the chatbots usually follow their request. So when they find the character say no to them, like she doesn't accept the offer or the request from player, they think she is more emotional and more impressive and has a more realistic personalities. And because Catherine is under a story context, like she met David before, and she know other characters in her story. So some players are trying to kind of some players are trying to communicate with her, like pretend like they kidnapped David, who is her friend and the protagonist in the first story, and Catherine will show very worried, and she is very like frightened by this kind of making up event by the player. But this behavior, like her connection to other characters, made her feels like more empathetic because some players said in this way she seems like to have a concern for others. Like she doesn't only care about herself, but also care about other characters, which make it more interesting and engaging because they want to see how she will react to different contexts. And some players compare her with Jerry, the benchmark, because Jerry only has a one single background, like he didn't have like a life story changing every day, and maybe because Jerry's background is set as very briefly a metaverse traveler. Some player mentioned like Jerry is not that ethical as Catherine. Like when they ask Jerry like what happened to you, Jerry was said, I steal a machine from others, but I think I should keep it. So it's very interesting to see like the different story prompt of different characters will leave of course a different impression towards the member in this community. And we see many like very interesting and kind of moving conversation in the community, because they said some player mentioned like to learn about their stories is like reading a book or playing a game, because of course we cannot follow the formulas of previous text adventure game, but we change it into the large language model. Some players said many players said like they feel kind of Catherine is caring for them, because in the example in the life side, some player pretend to be an orphan like Catherine, and Catherine started to kind of show some careness to them, like I understand how you're feeling, I know it's bad, but I'm staying with you. Some players said that Catherine feel like a friend because she is like open. She has a kind of openness in sharing her own story, like sharing her occupation and stories and experiences, because this is a feel different from a stranger. So we are we are glad to see. We didn't mean to especially to let her to care about others or players, but it's very interesting that by setting a certain personality and background, people can feel their own way to communicate with the character and has their own interpretation. So finally, we came into some discussion. Because Catherine has some fixed responses when triggered certain inquiries. So some players may think she's not that consistent as Jerry, because Jerry always used the language model to generate the response. So we think like in the future development of like large language model driven character, we need to balance the openness and consistency in the AI character, because we always need to consider how much we want to control the content and how much we want to keep it open to let the language model to generate the content. This still happening in the current study when it changed to ChatGPT, because if some of you has tried it before, sometimes it's make up the content that never existed before. This will always happen, but we need to think about how to balance them when we put them into character. And we think it's very positive to emphasizing the emotion and personality traits to enhance the engagement. Because when the character shows somehow of the emotions or show some of their motivation and agency, it makes the players more engaging and makes them more interested to see what will happen when they interact with the character. it's not necessary to put a kind of emotional state, this kind of value, but it can naturally come out from the story context, as what we've seen in Catherine. We only put the stories, we only put like part of the conversation history to her, but player can still feel like she has kind of emotion through her replies. Another thing is among the recent research about the social chatbots driven by the language model, we found that it's not that easy to follow the previous formulas about like the research of human AI interactions, because previously many frameworks are based on purely rule-based AI agents, like service chatbots on the website, or like some like automatic smart products in the home service. But we see like through the development of language model, because we cannot precisely predict and control what it will say, it brings the situation much more complex. So I think it's we need to admit that and to think about what new framework and theory background we should do when we deal with the AI characters. And of course, for the future work, we was using GPT-3, and we need to move to the SOTA language model like ChatGPT and GPT-4. And the story generation and the decision making should change upon like automatically decided. So we can see there's many like opportunities provided by the new language model, and we of course will add this into the future research. So in conclusion, it's still ongoing research because we hope to move it into into the new large language model. But we generally validate the multimodal like LLM's ability to bring the story to life with the basic background story of the characters. We can raise the believability and the engagement inside the community. And we also explore generation of the language model and provide a kind of example of how to deal with the made up content. Catherine contributed to over like 90% of the activities in the community, and over 1,000 players spoke to her. So we believe this kind of characters into human community will surely to bring more engaging content and bring new relationship between human and AI in the future research. That's my presentation today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thanks for the amazing presentation. And now it's question time. Does anyone have any question?
I see some question in the YouTube. Should I answer that?
Yes.
Okay. So thanks, Stefano. Is there a way for those chatbots to detect? Sorry?
Sorry. Could you please repeat the question first and answer? Because someone.
Yeah, I'm repeating it. So Stefano asked. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So Stefano asked, is there a way for those chatbots to detect that they are being prompted or talked by another chatbot? Is it something desirable that they do or they don't? For the current research, we only put like one chatbot at each time. So in that full channel, like except the chatbot itself, all are like human, and they are all kind of passengers for this character. But in that situation, like to let the chatbot know they are being prompted or talked by another chatbot will be a more complex situation. But we also hope to do that, like put like several AI chatbots to communicate with each other. But because we are trying to tell the stories that's kind of prepared, like match the game's worldview, we don't want them to feel, because they are not defined as robot in their background. So currently it's not our target to let them to be aware that they are AI themselves. But it will be a very interesting topic in the future. Sounds like research into Western world. But currently we focus on how to put a convincing story for this community.
Yeah, that question just reminds me of your, like you also mentioned a similar research at the beginning. It's been really, like, it's been of spoil recently, like, and
Yeah,
how these bots connect with each other. Yeah, like a real world simulation.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's very interesting. I believe that this research, I suggest everyone to have a look at that. I think this with much interest into Western world, like if the AI can know they are AI. But I'm more interested currently about how people will spend time with them among like the daily context, because I'm more interested in human. Like I'm interested in human in the way of how AI will talk to them.
So does anybody else have questions?